Before the storm. To some, this might not ring any bells, and to some, this was seen as a godsend in the World of Warcraft timeline. So what was it, and why was it so important? For that we need to go back in time to December of 2006. World of Warcraft was still in its vanilla state, but the Burning Crusade expansion was right around the corner. And it was on December 5th WoW would officially go from a 1.12 version to a 2.0 version, the two obviously meaning WoW's second iteration. Now in this patch, the Burning Crusade content was still locked. You couldn't travel through the Dark Portal and the level cap was still locked at level 60. However, what rocked the foundations of World of Warcraft was its introduction to the 41 talent trees, suddenly giving every class and spec combination new abilities and stronger spells. The patch lasted about 1 month, with the Dark Portal officially opening at the 7th of January in 2007. So basically, in this month, people were able to raid vanilla content, but with Burning Crusade talents alongside some other really cool things. And to anyone who played a meme spec back then, this was indeed an absolute game changer. And it made people take those specs a lot more serious. To show you just how much of an effect these new talent trees have, I'll be taking two meme specs as an example, which just so happen to be my two favorite class and spec combinations in the game, the Balanced Druid and Elemental Shaman. Pretty much everyone knows that these two specs are not exactly the best in terms of doing DPS, and a lot of times they would find themselves in the middle or bottom of the DPS meters, making them a lot less desirable as pure DPS compared to, let's say, a Fury Warrior or a Fire Mage. But, as I'll show you in this video, the game changed with this patch. First up, here's a Balanced Druid in vanilla with the regular 31 talent point system. It has 483 spell damage, 4% extra crit, and 11% extra spell hit from gear. And in a simulated raid environment, it churns out an average of about 520 DPS. Now let's make that druid on a Burning Crusade server where we have access to those 41 talent trees. It's still just level 60 and it has the exact same gear as our druid in vanilla. However, this time it has 550 spell damage, a total crit chance of 15.25% and also 11 extra spell hit. And this time it does a much more impressive average of 814 DPS, not to mention Starfire crits that are much bigger. So why is that? How did the Balanced Druid become much stronger? Well, let's look at the talents. First up, Starlight Wrath, which reduces the cast time of your Wrath and Starfire, which means they no longer have to put 10 talent points in the balance tree to reduce casting time of both of those spells. Next, Improved Moonfire has been cut down from 5 talents to 2 talents, leaving much more points to be spent on things like this one, Focus Starlight. With only 2 points, it increases the crit chance of Wrath and Starfire by another 4%. So while we have a crit chance of 15.25 on the character screen, with Wrath and Starfire we're close to almost 20%, and Moonfire has over 25% chance to crit. The talent that was improved Starfire is now called Celestial Focus, which still gives your Starfire a 15% chance to stun the target for 3 seconds, but it also increases the chance you'll resist spell interruption when casting your Wrath spell by 70%. Then we have Lunar Guidance, which increases your spell damage and healing by 25% of your total intellect. Now this talent is pretty huge too, because if you're a Moonkin with about 300 intellect, which is pretty doable, that will translate to 75 spell damage pretty much from just that one talent. And the more intellect you get, the more spell damage you get. That is pretty huge, and it's why our Moonkin in this TBC server has a lot more spell damage, even though it's wearing the exact same gear. Later down the tree we see another new talent called Balance of Power, which basically gives you 4% extra spell hit and reduces the chance you'll be hit by spells for the same amount. An amazing talent for Balanced Druid, as they normally get no extra spell hit from talents. Moonkin form is also reworked with 40% extra armor, attack power is increased, every melee hit has a chance to restore mana based on attack power, but more importantly, the Moonkin aura now gives 5% extra crit chance as opposed to 3%. Next to the Moonkin form is a talent called Dream State, which will regenerate mana equal to 10% of your intellect every 5 seconds, even while casting. Then later we have Wrath of Cenarius, which means your Starfire spell gains an additional 20% and your Wrath gains an additional 10% of your bonus damage effects. Just these talents alone greatly increase the damage and longevity output of the Balanced Druid. There's more nuances, but for the sake of this video, I'll try not to go too in-depth and keep it short and sweet. I hope you can see just how drastic Balanced Druids change in this patch, and how this final patch was a chance for the Balanced Druid to really shine and output much more damage than they used to be able to do with the regular 31 talent point trees. Let's take one more example, the Elemental Shaman. This Shaman with just regular vanilla talents has 396 spell damage, 5% extra spell crit and 4% extra spell hit from gear. It churns out an average DPS of 480 on our vanilla server. However, with the exact same gear but on a TBC server, it now has 402 spell damage, a total crit chance of 11.7% and also 4% extra spell hit, and it now churns out a much higher average of 710 DPS. There's also a couple of nuances to the spec, so let's dive into the talent tree real quick. So the biggest change we first see is clear casting. Clear casting in vanilla is completely random, but here it happens every time you crit, and while it doesn't give you a free spell right after, it does reduce the mana cost of your next 2 spells by 40%. Up next is the addition of Unrelenting Storm, a talent that with 5 points in it will restore mana equal to 10% of your intellect every 5 seconds even while casting. Now both the addition of the new clear casting and Unrelenting Storm means that mana issues will be a lot less, which is pretty huge for the Elemental Shaman. Later down the tree we have Elemental Precision, which gives you a massive 6% extra hit chance of your Fire, Frost and Nature spells, and also 10% threat reduction on those spells. Then there's Lightning Overload, which gives your Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning spells a 20% chance to duplicate a similar spell at no additional cost that does half the damage. And then last but definitely not least, Totem of Wrath, a fire totem that gives your entire party 3% spell hit and 3% spell crit. This means that the Elemental Shaman gets 9% spell hit from just talents in the elemental tree, which many casters would kill for. The result is that our DPS test in TBC was much higher and much more stable, because instead of having just 4% spell hit from gear, we now have a total spell hit of 13%. So like the Balanced Druid, the Elemental Shaman could have a much better chance of pushing out more DPS in this patch. Of course, besides these two classes and spec combinations, many other classes saw new talents and abilities that revitalized their characters. Retribution Paladins got Crusader Strike, Shadow Priests got Vampiric Touch, and the list goes on and on. So why am I telling you this? Well, first off, because it's a pretty important piece in World of Warcraft history, so to say, but also because there might be a chance that this is coming to Classic as well. I mean, while Blizzard hasn't fully confirmed anything, I think it's safe to say they'll probably end up moving Classic to TBC, and if they follow the official timeline, that means that we will get that Before the Storm pre-patch where we have TBC talents, but the content is still locked at 60. So with a little luck, you will be able to put everything I've shown here into practice, and it would make for some very interesting boss fights where all of a sudden the meme specs rise up to the top and give everyone else a run for their money. Well, maybe not the top, but you know what I mean. It could shake up the meta that we currently have in Classic WoW a little bit, and who knows, we'll see some very impressive numbers by those meme specs in the last stage of Classic. I mean, just imagine how amazing it would be to be a Balanced Druid. You join a raid, and everyone there expects you to be at the bottom of the DPS list. Yet now, you do much more damage. Your hits are much more reliable due to that increased spell hit talent, and all of a sudden, you gloss over to the DPS meters to see yourself actually getting a lot higher than you used to be. That would be pretty darn awesome, if I say so myself. So there you go folks, a little in-depth look of the drastic change that came with the Before the Storm patch and how it completely overhauled meme specs. Of course those weren't the only ones that underwent massive changes in this patch, so maybe I'll cover the rest of the changes in a video in the near future. For now though, I want to thank you for watching this video. I'm Hamsterwheel and have a good one.